Welcome to Daily Faith, and I can hardly believe what I'm going to tell you just now. My guest today is none other than Pat Boone. When I was a wee boy back in Scotland, I used to watch Pat Boone with his white buckskin shoes. And I told my mum, who was 96 years of age, who lives in Scotland, that he's going to be on as a guest today. And I've never heard my mum giggle like that before in all her life. At 96, she loves Pat Boone and used to watch him. And I mean, in this generation, you may not grasp this, but this is one of the icons. This is not someone that was famous. This is one of the icons of entertainment across the board, both as an actor and as one of the great crooners of all time. In fact, I let my sons hear Love Letters in the Sand. And he and his wife Shirley, who passed away not too long ago, was a tremendous testimony in a day when Christians and entertainers weren't seen very often. But when Pat Boone made his decision for Christ, when he began to talk about it and carried the cross and the faith of Jesus so clearly. And I love his acting. He's in a brand new movie that we're going to talk about. He's written a brand new book. And at 90, he's written a great new song that I'm going to let you hear. And but I am absolutely thrilled and highly honored that I can actually say, Pat Boone, welcome to Daily Faith. Thank you for taking your time to be with us.
Great to be with you, Philip. And I was reminding you, I'm Scots-Irish myself.
What?
Daniel Boone.
Who? Of course.
Daniel
Absolutely.
Boone was Scots-Irish, and he didn't even, in many cases, put the E on the end of his name.
Yes, yes.
He was Scots. He was not going to give you any more than he.
Now, you see, most folk don't know that the Scots are famous for being a wee bit thrifty.
Yes.
And they say that the English love the gospel because they can talk about it. The Welsh love the gospel because they can sing about it. The Irish love the gospel because they can fight about it. And the Scots love the gospel because it's free.
It's free. That's
It's
right.
free.
And it certainly is. Yeah, I'm proud of that, and certain the descent from Daniel Boone, who was a pioneer.
Yes, of course.
And a guy who did a lot in his life and who was literally a legend in his own time.
He was, of course.
Because the poet laureate of the world at that time, Lord Byron,
yes, of course,
wrote an epic poem about this trailblazer that he'd heard about. He never met Daniel Boone, but he'd heard about this guy blazing trails through the wilderness, which became America.
Absolutely.
And he was fascinated by him, and he wrote an epic poem about the man he'd never met. Well, if you've had the poet laureate of the world write a poem about
That's
you,
big.
then you are a legend in your own time.
That's big.
I've never had that experience though, but I do feel that I've inherited some of his penchant for staying busy. He always was busy, Daniel Boone.
And to say the least, you are busy in your 90th year. You've written a book, you've recorded a new song, you're in a movie that is shocking and surprising everyone. They didn't think that Reagan would be so big, and it is. I'm just amazed.
Have you seen the film yet?
I'm going out with my wife this week to see it.
You will love it. I can tell you in advance. I'm in it, of course, but in a part that is unusual. But the thing about the film is I've seen the finished cut finally. We had a premiere at Grauman's Chinese theater just last week. Wasn't it last week, Dana? 2 weeks ago.
There you are,
and,
in your white suit. Yeah. I love it.
Yep, and my part, it had to be. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that was a song. Let me finish the thing about this. You're going to see me in the film, but I'm not playing Pat Boone. I'm playing George Otis, who was a Christian businessman that we all knew years ago. He was a very successful businessman, but also a deeply spiritual Christian. And I called him the Electric Man, and I portray him in the film briefly. I'm not portraying Pat Boone. There's a young actor playing Pat Boone and a young actress playing Shirley Boone next to me as I portray George Otis in a scene that did take place in the governor's mansion when Reagan was governor, and we had a prayer circle in the governor's mansion, George Otis, when it came his turn to say his part of the prayer, and he started into it, and he said something like, as you'll see, Lord, thank you for this, our country, for our liberties, for this man who, and there's silence, and he's not saying anything, and we waited. And then in another voice, we heard him say, my son, I'm well pleased with you. If you continue to walk uprightly before me, you will dwell at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And there was more silence, and then he finished the prayer. And we knew what had happened, but Reagan, all he could say was, well, that was something. It was a word of prophecy that came during that little prayer circle. And the producer of the film, who just knew that this had to be in the film because it was a prophetic utterance that he would become president, and he did. So that's in the movie, and you'll see it. But I had recorded when I was in Oklahoma doing that part with Dennis Quaid, who was magnificent and should get an Academy Award.
I hope he does, yes.
I think you'll agree when you see it. But I recorded and on film, Governor, as George Otis, I just need you to know those words were not my words. I only spoke as the Holy Spirit gave me utterance. We call it a word of prophecy.
I never knew that
I
happened.
wanted that in the film so the audience would know what had just happened, but there wasn't room to put that part in. So now you know, and of course you understand, but that was literally a prophetic utterance that I got to speak as George Otis while a young guy was playing me next to me, and another actress playing Shirley next to me.
But you also met President Reagan, didn't you?
Oh, I knew him so well. Our kids went to school together. See, he and Nancy had their kids at the end of their childbearing capability.
Yeah.
And Shirley and I, of course, we were in a big hurry. When I graduated from Columbia University at 23, I'd been married to Shirley since we were 19. And when I graduated at 23, I had 4 kids already. And I was already doing the Chevy show on television every week. I was making movies and writing books that were bestsellers to kids, and living an extremely busy life. But the Reagans, and he and Nancy and I and Shirley, our kids went to school together. They were the same age.
Yes.
And so I was a supporter when he ran for governor. Nobody thought he could win, but he did. And then he was governor twice. And then when he decided he was talked into running for president, of course, I was supporting him then. And I was in that circle with George Otis when the prophetic utterance came. And I was a delegate to the convention in 1970 when Reagan was up for nomination. He didn't get it. I went to the convention knowing he was going to be nominated because of that prophecy.
Yeah. And it didn't happen.
No.
I remember. Gerald Ford, yes. Yes.
But then they talked him into Reagan into running again. He didn't want to. He had to be talked into running the first time. Yeah. But the scene we did do is not in the movie, but this really happened the night of his election, Reagan's election, and I was hearing the broadcasters on TV giving the latest tolls, and Brokaw and Jennings and Dan Rather were all saying that he was going to be the next president. I followed an impulse. I called Reagan's number in Pacific Palisades just in case he hadn't gone to the hotel yet, either to concede or accept. And sure enough, he answered, hello. I said, may I be the first to refer to you as Mr. President? And he said, well, it's early, Pat. He said, they're still counting the votes. I said, wait, no, Brokaw, Jennings, and Rather are all saying you're going to be our next president. They don't seem too happy about it, but I said, let me ask you, do you remember that time in Sacramento when we had that meeting and that word came?
Yeah.
And he said, I've thought about it many times in the last few months. And of course, it was true. And that there was a scene we didn't use in the film when they were trying to talk him into running again.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to. Nancy said, and we portrayed this, but it's just not in the movie. Do you remember when that preacher, she called George Otis the preacher, when he had that prayer and what he said? And Reagan said, well, you thought he was a crackpot. And she said, well, maybe, but maybe he was right. Well, they talked Reagan into running again, and we
Sure.
know the result
Well,
of that.
when
One of the best
when I came to America and became a citizen, my first vote was for Ronald Reagan, and I was driving from Louisiana, from Florida to Louisiana, the election night, at a wee black and white TV stuck in the front of a Winnebago motorhome that would only have a signal when we were going through a town. And so I'm following this thing all through the night driving, and when it became clear that he'd be the president, I thought, the first guy I've ever voted for, and he's going to be president of the United States.
What a great president
What
he
a
was.
great man.
And Dennis Quaid, when he says, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Yes.
And that was Reagan. And when I was filming in Oklahoma with many of the other cast,
yes,
they kept saying, we keep forgetting this is not Reagan. Dennis Quaid has assumed the character so well that we keep thinking we're talking to the president himself. And that's how well Dennis Quaid did. And I think he will certainly be nominated.
Well, the trailers I've seen are it just looks like Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. I still hear some of your brogue. I still hear some of your Scottish brogue.
A wee bit here and there, yes.
Which I like.
I came to America with my dad in 1969, and he preached and I sang. And I loved the moment I came to America, and there's a great segue to where we're going. I loved America. I loved the nature and the spirit of the place. And I knew, I often say this, when I got off the airplane in John F. Kennedy Airport and got outside in the buzz of the taxis and the buses and the smell of the diesel fumes, I knew I was an American at that moment.
Yes.
And but I know you've lived a long enough time to know that the America that we're living in today is not the America that God wants us to be.
That's why I wrote the song, that Where Did America Go? Because I felt we needed a song, and I'm a big Bob Dylan fan.
Sure, brilliant.
And I know Bob. And in fact, people used to, when Bob became a Christian and had that album, You Got to Serve Somebody, and Slow Train Coming, and it became known that he had become a Christian, Jewish, Bob Zimmerman, that the rumor went out that he'd been baptized in my pool. It had not been. He hadn't been. I wished it had, because it was known during that 70s movement in the 70s, the Jesus movement, that we were having baptisms in our pool then, and we were. But no, that was not true. But I tried to get Bob Dylan to help me write this song, I Know We Need.
Yeah.
But he was out on the road with the Outlaws, singing with them.
Surely.
And his manager said, no, he just can't. He can't take time to help you write that song. So I went in and finished writing it myself. But I meant it to be a Bob Dylan type song, and portrayed not with a big production, but with a guitar, rhythm guitar, and a harmonica, which is the way he did Blowing in the Wind. And that's the way
we have a minute of that song. I understand it's had millions and millions of downloads, and
yes.
So let's play that for a minute or so, and then let the folk know how they can get to there and listen to the whole song.
You will do it.
Watch and listen to this song.
Where did America go? The land of the brave and the free. Can one generation erase a great nation? 'Cause we can't find a way to agree. 'Cause we can't find the way to agree. Where has America gone? Where are Abraham, Martin, and John? We drowned out their voices and gave up our choices. Do we have the strength to move on? Do we have the strength to move on? Oh, God of sweet liberty, help us and heal us again. If we fall on our knees, will you still hear our pleas? Take us back to where we were then. Take us back to where we were then.
I can hear Bob Dylan in that song. I can
Yes.
hear, now when you mention it, I listened to it earlier, and whenever I hear, I said, oh, that is a Bob Dylan, you got it right there, I'll tell you what.
Oh man, I hope when he hears it, I don't know if he has, that he'll recognize
Brilliant.
himself and that his influence, because when he was talking about prejudice and some of the other things that we needed to correct in our country, and helping us to face those things with that song, which was a great blessing. I realize today that we have let so many of our cherished traits just slide away from us, and we're
That's
ignoring
so
as
true.
I say in another verse, the Holy Grail, the Constitution,
Absolutely.
and that we put our freedoms up for sale. I wanted to show the picture of that senator, his closet with the
The
gold
gold
bricks,
bars.
gold bars, and the cash in the closet, selling our freedoms
Yeah.
literally for sale. And that's not it. I like to say it's an uncommon thing in our representation, governmental representation,
Yeah.
but too often that kind of thing does happen. And
Sadly.
people trade their influence
Yeah.
for gain, their own gain. But those, and then the Bible, can America still rise again and find our way back to where we were then? Yes, that old family Bible
Yes, sir.
still holds our survival or revival. I found two words to rhyme
Yeah.
with Bible. Our
Both are
revival,
good.
Bible, and that's the way I leave the song. We've got to get back to the things and the principles that made us who we are, or
Absolutely.
we will cease being
Absolutely.
who we are or were.
I'm from the British Empire. When I was a boy
Yeah.
growing up in school, our maps in this classroom, all the pink parts on the world map was British. So our teacher would say the sun never sets on the British Empire, Africa, India, Australia, Canada. I mean, we were much big. Great Britain in its empire was bigger than America has ever been.
Yeah.
And we
Yes.
turned our back on God. And I read the other day, Pat, listen to this. Britain today is 1% the size it was when it was the empire. That's how far we've fallen. And if America
And
thinks,
that's where we're headed.
yes, if
That's where
America
we're
thinks that it's too big to fail, then
Yeah.
we're past the point of no return. And how do folk get a
Our
hold of?
Congress,
Go ahead.
let me just I'm sorry to
No, go
interrupt
ahead.
you,
No,
but
no.
our Congress and the Supreme Court have, and I went to Washington to protest this. I was not successful. They will allow the flag to be burned as free speech, as the freedom of expression.
Yeah.
So we take the flags that we celebrated yesterday, and we out at Pepperdine, there were 3,000 flags on our campus flying for 3,000 of that all died on that 2001.
Sure.
So 2000, it was 2001, and we're letting even our flag and our Pledge of Allegiance in the Olympics. I saw these athletes who've become millionaires
Yes, sir. Me too.
standing there with the flag, and there should be tears in their eyes and gratitude. Instead, these looks of disdain
Yeah.
for our flag and for our anthem. And I, even though I admire those athletes for their, oh boy, what was that? There's a phone ringing somewhere. We're trying to, what is it? I don't know where the phone is. We're trying to get rid of the phone that's ringing right in our ears.
I can't hear it, so you're okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
It is a number I don't answer. That's why the people call me. They think they're going to get me to give money to things that,
Oh my.
they're just asking for. And I always, hey, who is it? Who's calling? And they'll say, are you Charles Boone? Yes, I am. Who's calling? And I just have fun with that phone. and they
Oh,
hang up
that is so
eventually. They
funny.
realize.
That is brilliant.
But
How can
anyway,
how can folk
here's
get this download? How can we do this? Is it
how can we do what?
patboone.com? Is that correct?
Oh, thank you. You can.
www.patboone.com. I want everyone to go and download that song today.
That's a good place to go, patboone.com, but also Spotify, Amazon Music, TikTok. I'm all over TikTok. I mean, who would have thought I was going to be on TikTok
Isn't
at
that
this point?
crazy? I was
But the
teasing
song is catching on.
I was teasing my mom a few weeks ago that she'll be 96 in November, and I said, "Do you know how you were almost born at the same time as the airplane?" I says, "How much have you seen in your long lifetime?" And I'm talking to you, and once again, America has lost its thread. We've lost what
Yeah,
made us great, and
yeah.
we need to get back to the Bible, back to what the foundation of this country was.
Here's a book, my last book. I've had other best-selling books, million-selling books.
Yes,
This one is on its way. It's simply called If.
if
And I found that the word if is the most important word in the Bible.
wow.
Why? It's there over 500 times. Every blessing of God comes with an if.
With an if my
God,
people,
in
yeah,
creating us, He gave us the right to choose. We can choose what we do now. We can choose how we live
so
now.
true.
We can choose our eternal destiny. And it's every blessing comes with the if. What did I say on here? It's not religious, just life or death.
Yes,
And because it's sold in truck stops and airports and the eternal choice we all must make. We choose.
yes,
God allows us to choose how we live, whether we have an America that we did have, and where we will spend eternity. He only is having people come live with Him
yes.
who want to live with Him and who are willing to live with Him now. And by
Hallelujah,
faith,
hallelujah.
you know, build our own futures. And so
Absolutely.
I don't know how much time I have left on this planet, but while I'm here, I'm asking God to just use me in every way He can.
Well, I'll
And
tell you
right
what.
now, it's been 3 movies, five movies in the last year and a half. I played Thomas Jefferson in one that has yet to be released. It's called The American Miracle,
It's amazing.
about
I'm in
Jefferson.
awe. I was in awe of you before. Growing up, I was in awe of you. And here I am now looking at you and listening to what you're saying. And I'm even more in awe that the gifts that you've given to the world, but it's all based on the fact that Jesus is the real answer. The only hope America has, the
Yeah,
only hope the world
he's
has is Jesus.
he's the only reason I have had this life.
Yes.
And I knew it when I made my first rock and roll record.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was doing. I just was singing this song that was cute, and it was an instant million seller. And then Ain't That a Shame came the next,
Ain't
and it
that
was a
a
million
shame? Yeah.
seller. And then for I set a record, which is a record still today, the longest in history of 27, what is it, 4.5 years, like 270 weeks or something,
Yeah.
220 weeks without ever being off the record charts. I knew then at the beginning, God was giving me a platform. I thought I was going to be a teacher preacher
Yes.
when I married Shirley, and she was so happy about that because her dad, Red Foley, was a traveling country singer and very big,
Yes. Huge.
and yet he was not home a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And so she was so glad she was marrying a guy that was going to be a teacher preacher, and we'd have summers off. We'd have a little house with a picket fence, and we'd have 3 or 4 kids, and she would have a settled home life. Little did she know,
And she
little did
married
I
Pat Boone.
know, God had a different plan, and
It's
He gave me
amazing.
that platform, and
Yeah.
that's why even when I was in college and making movies and doing the Pat Boone Chevy show and all that, I was asked to write a book of advice for kids. Well, I quickly took the opportunity. It was a secular publisher, but I wrote a book called Twixt 12 and 20. And the publisher didn't like the title. What does that mean, Twixt 12 and 20? I said, what's between 12 and 20? They said, oh, the teens. Yes, the teens. And and I had to tell them that. And
That's
I
so
liked the
clever.
alliteration of Twixt 12 and 20. And that book, it was practical but biblically based advice for teens.
Yeah.
It sold millions of copies while I was still in college. and it was the
Whoa.
#1 bestseller. It was only rivaled at that time by Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of
Power
Positive
Positive Thinking,
Thinking
yeah.
and Art Linkletter's Kids Say the Darndest Things.
Darn, yeah, of course,
And
yeah.
there's Pat Boone's Twixt 12 and 20 going into every school library and Christian church libraries and into many languages.
Yeah.
And so that verified to me, oh, this is what this was all about. This is
Amazing.
what my career is all
You
about.
need to
I have a
that book needs to be
platform.
re-released because it's needed more now than ever before.
Well, it's needed, but I was asked to redo it, and 20 years later, when the things that I talked about in the book, I mean, and first of all, I had a teen audience. That's why it was successful.
Yeah, it's true.
But
Yeah.
20, 30 years later, the things I would have to be talking about were drugs, alcoholism, promiscuity, sex in the school halls.
Yeah.
I mean, and abortion and all these other
A different
things
world.
that I would have written about, but I knew I didn't have the audience to write for.
Yes. Well, I'm just amazed at your life. I'm thrilled to have met you. I need you to go to patboone.com and you'll learn so much more about this great man, not just a great man with talent, but a great man of God. And Pat, I am thankful for you. I'd love to talk to you again. I'd love to spend hours with you because
Well, I've got plenty more to tell you, but we won't try to jam it in now.
I can only imagine. Well,
But
listen, thank you so much for being on Daily Faith today. And we're going to put up on the screen all the ways you can get in contact and reach out. He's on Facebook. He's on Instagram. He's on Twitter.
PatBoone.com, I'll welcome you. You know, I go live now about every other week now for an hour. And
where at?
Facebook.
On Facebook
Live, and I take questions from whoever's watching, and we're having fun with it. And so,
who would have thought?
Love it. I never know.
I talk to my mom in Scotland every day on FaceTime. So here she is at 96, sitting in a wee house in the northeast corner of Scotland, looking at me in full color, live back and forth. I says, Mom, do you understand that you're almost 5,000 miles away from me and I'm sitting here talking to you like you're right next door? And she says, who would have ever thought it? And,
maybe she knows that we can talk about this more later, but I played a young Scotsman, you know, in the movie, what is the movie? I have to think about it. Young Scotsman, and I performed in Edinburgh, and I had to learn Scottish. It was not April. It was Journey to the Center of the Earth. Journey to the Center.
Were you
of
in
the
that
Earth.
movie?
Scottish lad, young Scottish lad. Yeah,
Oh,
Alexander McEwen. Alexander McEwen in the film Scottish Lad.
Yeah.
Journey to the Center of the Earth, the original film, and the guy that taught Julie Andrews her Cockney.
Yes.
I got with him. I knew his name. I can't remember it not right now, but he gave me a Scottish accent so I could roll me R's.
Roll your R's.
Yeah, roll me R's.
That's amazing.
And so when I was after the first 2 or 3 days of filming, Buddy Adler, the head of the studio, called me and said, you know, we appreciate the fact that you've learned a Scottish accent, but we can't understand a word you're saying. So we're going to have to redub those scenes.
That is funny.
And then when I was I performed in the big theater in Edinburgh, and did my songs and all, and the people afterwards said, "What part of Scotland were you from? We don't recognize your accent."
Yeah, I can't pin it. I can't pin your accent now because it's Scotland. Although Scotland is half the size of Ohio, but you can go along from where we are in our little corner town. You go along the coast for 10 miles to Cairnbulg or Inveralchi, and they speak a totally different accent. And within 10 miles of each other. So they couldn't pin you down to where you were from.
We're trying to figure out
where
what
were you?
part of Scotland was I from.
That is amazing.
Anyway, I'm Scottish, you know, and
well,
I got to play
I didn't know that.
Young Scottish lad in the Journey to the Center of the Earth. And it was a huge, huge success.
Yes.
I can tell you later, not now, but I'll tell you later how it saved 20th Century Fox, the film corporation. They were going bankrupt.
Yeah.
Because they were filming Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, and that was disappearing a week at a time.
Yeah, that was a lot of money.
and it was costing so much more money that the bankers were getting ready to shut 20th down. But over that, but then my movie Journey to the Center of the Earth came out and was an instant hit
Yeah,
all over the world, and it convinced 20th, the bankers, to let 20th keep going.
that's
And
amazing.
and I
Oh,
don't know, I'd like to compare which movie did the most box office, Journey to the Center of the Earth or Cleopatra. Maybe because it was Richard Burton and
Elizabeth
Elizabeth
Taylor.
Taylor, it might have outboxed officed my film, but my film saved the studio
That
while
crazy.
they were about to go bankrupt doing theirs.
Yes, well, Elizabeth Taylor and Burton were two pretty big hitters in those days, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
She
I
was
think Burton might have been Scottish.
he was Welsh.
I'm not sure. Welsh, Welsh,
He was
Welsh.
Welsh, and the depth of his voice and the timbre of his voice, he got that. He said, I watched an interview years ago, and he said he'd go out and he would shout, and he made his voice rougher by shouting out, in the hills. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Well, I could tell you some more stories about that, but as I say, I won't run out of. We can do it again,
If
and
you,
we can
I'd
talk
love to
further.
have you. I'd love to have you come back again because I just think there's so much we can learn from you, and I feel like I'm talking to my mom in the fact of the history and the depth of time, and we
Well,
don't
tell your
appreciate
mom.
that.
Well, tell your mom I love her in my Scottish way.
Well, if you would do me a great big favor, I don't know if she's going to watch this today or not, but if her name is Wendy, and if you could
Wendy.
say happy 96th birthday to her,
Yeah.
I will become her favorite child.
Okay. Now,
Yeah, do it right now.
hello, Wendy. Pat Boone here, and I've just been told, a little birdie told
Are we
me
birdie?
that you are 96. I know that's not possible because a wee lass like you cannot be 96 years old. But I'm told that at least you're telling people that's the case. So I want to wish you a very happy birthday from a fellow Scotsman, at least in part, Pat Boone.
You've just made me her favorite child. I'll never pay you back. I might get a bit more of the inheritance. Pat Boone, it
Well,
has been a pleasure to talk to you. And if ever you could come back for a wee while again, I'd love to see you.
yeah, I like to tell you about the time and I'll show you pictures of when I played golf in Scotland in a kilt,
In a kilt?
in a kilt,
That could
and
be
I wear the kilt.
that could
That's
be
another
dangerous.
another whole. It is another whole subject because I wear it sometimes in the celebrity tournaments where I play
Yes,
because I know that the purpose of a celebrity's playing the golf tournament is
sure.
raising money,
Yeah.
and therefore you should want to be seen and interviewed about it. So I wear a real traditional Scottish
And
kilt,
what
and I'm
tartan? What is your tartan?
I wish I could tell you.
You don't
I
know?
don't know if the guy who made it for me, if he told me if he had, I should have remembered.
Yeah.
I want to say McDonald's, but I'm not sure that's I'm not sure that is. That's
Yeah.
what comes to mind immediately.
Okay.
But
Well,
the tartan,
I
the tartan.
didn't know that Pat Boone had a kilt. I've learned something else new today. You're filling my head with great knowledge.
I'll try to send you a picture so you can show it.
I love
And I've
that.
got lots of pictures, and I love the way it looks, and I love the way it feels when I'm playing. I like that little breeze that I get when I'm when I'm playing in a tartan, in a
Ah,
kilt.
and the
I
thing
love
is,
that
in golf
breeze.
courses
That
in
breeze.
Scotland, you can get more than a breeze, so you better be careful.
Well, I'm going to tell you my answer to the question when I'm asked what the Scotsman wear under his kilt. I'll tell you when we talk next.
Oh, I love this. Listen, this has been a delight. What a pleasure. What an honor to
Well,
speak to you.
we'll have an encore then.
If you would,
Thank you so much
I
for
would be
letting people know
delighted.
about the song. And just go to patboone.com and we'll
PatBoone.com. His book is called
yeah,
If, and the song is called Where Did America Go? And I would love
yes,
every one
yes.
of you. And if you got kids and grandkids, reacquaint them with this great man and his great gift that he's given to the world for all of these years. Pat Boone, thank you so much for being with us, and we
Thank you,
appreciate you
Philip.
so much. We'll talk to you again, I
We'll,
hope.
we'll try to have an encore. Okay.
That's a deal. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Okay.
For